He killed 61 men without a single defeat. Then, at the height of his fame, Miyamoto Musashi put down his swords and picked up a brush. What drove the world's greatest warrior to become an artist? The answer lies in his fine years. He fought 61 duels and never lost once. But his greatest creation wasn't a sword technique. It was a painting of a bird. Why did Japan's most feared warrior abandon his blades and become an artist? By the 1620s, Miyamoto Musashi had become something Japan had never seen before. A living legend with no enemies left to fight. He had defeated clan masters, school champions, and dismantled the entire Yoshioka school, an entire family of swordsmen, in a series of brutal encounters. Lords sought his counsel. Students begged to train under him. But Musashi refused all permanent positions. He remained a ronin, masterless, restless, and increasingly isolated by his own invincibility. The man who had devoted his life to the sword now wandered Japan, searching for something the sword could no longer give him. Musashi's wandering years were not idle. He studied Buddhist philosophy, watched artisans at work, and spent long hours observing nature. The movement of birds, the stillness of water, the weight of silence between sounds. His notebooks from this period reveal a man in transition. He wrote about the way of the warrior as something extending far beyond combat, into calligraphy, into craftsmanship, into the precise economy of every deliberate movement. He was building a philosophy, but had not yet found the medium through which to express it. That moment was still years away. There was a harder truth Musashi rarely admitted. After the legendary duel with Sasaki Kojiro on Ganru Island in 1612, something in him shifted. He had defeated the only man who might truly have been his equal. The emptiness that followed never fully left. He continued to fight and win, but each victory felt less like triumph and more like confirmation of a loneliness no sword could cure. The greatest swordsman in Japan was also, quietly, one of its most isolated men. He needed another way to leave a mark on the world. In 1634, Musashi accepted an invitation from Hosokawa Tadatoshi, the lord of Kumamoto domain. It was not an appointment as a retainer. Musashi still refused that, but an arrangement of honored patronage. Tadatoshi was himself an accomplished swordsman and deeply respected Musashi's philosophy. In Kumamoto, Musashi found something rare in 60 years of living. A place where he was genuinely understood. Under Hosokawa's roof, freed from the pressure of proving himself through combat, Musashi began to paint. Not as a pastime, with the same ferocious intention he had once brought to every duel. Musashi's first paintings surprised those who saw them. They expected something grand and fierce, battles, warriors in glory, scenes of violent action. What they received was entirely different. A solitary hawk
on a bare branch, a cormorant standing alone on a wet rock, an old monk caught mid-step. The images were spare, almost brutally simple, just a few strokes of ink surrounded by vast empty space. Yet every painting radiated unmistakable force, as though the brush had struck the paper with the same decisive energy as a killing blow. Those who watched him work began to understand.
His most celebrated painting, Koboku Meikakuzu, Shrike on a Dead Branch, was completed during his Kumamoto years. A single bird perches on a leafless tree against total emptiness. No background, no decoration, not one unnecessary line. Art historians have spent centuries analyzing what makes it so arresting. The answer may be simple. The painting contains exactly what a sword strike contains. Total commitment, no hesitation, nothing wasted. Every stroke was placed once and never corrected. Musashi painted the way he fought. One chance, one moment, everything on the line.
Musashi did not only paint birds and branches. He painted Daruma, the fierce patriarch of Zen, with wild eyes and immovable presence. He rendered Hote, the laughing monk, not jolly and round, but lean and watchful, as if waiting for something invisible to move. He carved wooden sculptures, a kanon of remarkable serenity, a Fudo Mayo trembling with suppressed fury. Each work carried the same unmistakable quality: power held in perfect tension, energy compressed to the instant before release. The principle of the sword expressed through ink and wood.
Musashi explained the connection himself in writings later assembled as the Book of Five Rings. He wrote, "From one thing, no 10,000 things. The sword and the brush were not different arts. They were the same art, expressed through different tools. The principle he had spent a lifetime mastering: total presence, decisive action, the elimination of all that was unnecessary, applied to ink on paper exactly as it applied to steel in combat. In both cases, the practitioner vanishes. There is only the strike, only the stroke."
Hosokawa Tadatoshi died in 1641. With his patron gone, Musashi lost the only anchor connecting him to ordinary human society. He was 60 years old. His body was worn by decades of hard living, but his mind remained restless, searching. He had painted, he had sculpted, he had taught hundreds of students, yet something remained unfinished. Everything he had learned about the sword, about the brush, about the very nature of existence, needed to be written down before he was gone from the world. In 1643, Musashi withdrew alone to Reigando, a cave in the mountains above Kumamoto. He was 61 years old. He brought no swords. He brought writing materials, a small clay oil lamp, and whatever food was left at the cave entrance by local monks who respected but did not disturb him. For nearly 2 years, he sat in the darkness and wrote. What he was creating was not an autobiography or a memoir. It was something far more demanding. A complete account of everything he had learned about the nature of strategy itself.
Life in Reigando was severe. No comforts, no conversation, no shelter from cold stone. Musashi wrote every day. He exercised each morning. He observed the slow passage of time, the way he had once observed opponents across a dueling ground, with total attention, missing nothing. Those who occasionally glimpsed him during this period described a man who had achieved something extraordinary: perfect stillness. The greatest fighter Japan had ever produced, a man of 60 years and 61 victories, had found at last absolute peace.
On May 12, 1645, Musashi completed Go-Rin no Sho, the Book of 5 Rings. He was in failing health, suffering what historians believe was severe nerve pain. He knew he was dying. 2 days after finishing the manuscript, he wrote a final short text, Dokkodo, the Way of Walking Alone. 21 precepts for living. The very last, never stray from the way. He had devoted his entire life to mastery. He died on June 13th, 1645, aged 62. He kept his final promise to himself.
What do the paintings reveal that the duels do not? They reveal patience. A man capable of sitting motionless for an hour, studying a bird on a branch before committing a single line to paper. They reveal humility, because the vast empty space surrounding each figure is as deliberate as the figure itself. And Musashi understood that what you leave out is as important as what you put in. Most of all, they reveal a man who spent a lifetime learning how to be fully present in a fight, in a studio, in a dark cave, with complete and perfect attention.
Musashi's paintings occupy a strange position in Japanese cultural history. They are designated important cultural properties of Japan, not because he was a famous swordsman who dabbled in art, but because the paintings are genuinely great. Art critics, who evaluate them without knowing the artist's name, describe them as the work of a serious, accomplished painter. He had done something almost impossible, mastered 2 entirely separate disciplines at the highest level. Japan has a word for this kind of encompassing mastery: Geido, the way of the arts. The legacy Musashi left behind is unusual, precisely because it is dual. His sword school, Niten Ichi-ryu, the 2 heavens as one style, still has active practitioners in Japan today. His Book of 5 Rings is studied in military academies and business schools around the world. And his paintings hang in museums in Tokyo, Kumamoto, and Osaka, where visitors who have never heard of him stop and stare, arrested by something in a single shrike on a dead branch, something they cannot name, but cannot walk past.
There is a specific kind of greatness that reveals itself only in what a person does when there is nothing left to prove. Musashi had nothing left to prove when he picked up a brush. No one doubted his ability. No challenger remained. He painted and sculpted and wrote, not to impress or demonstrate, but because the alternative was silence. And Musashi, who had lived most of his life in motion, chose to fill that silence with creation. The swords are in museums now, but it is the paintings that show you who he truly was.
Reigando Cave still stands outside Kumamoto City. Visitors climb the mountain path to find it much as it was in Musashi's time. A dark opening in dark stone, the forest unchanged around it. Inside, a small statue marks where he sat and wrote and waited for death, with the same composure he had brought to every duel. He had told his students, the way of the warrior is to master the virtue of his weapons. He mastered two. The rest of us are still learning from one.
Next time on Samurai Chronicles, Japan's mightiest general is found dead without a single wound on his body. No battle, no sword, just silence. Uesugi Kenshin, the god of war, dead under impossible circumstances. Was it ninja poison? Was it illness? Japan's greatest unsolved military mystery. Coming next.
Miyamoto Musashi, 61 duels, 0 defeats. Japan's most complete warrior. And in the end, a painter, a sculptor, a writer, a philosopher. He left behind a sword school still practiced today, a philosophical text studied worldwide, and a collection of ink paintings that bring museum visitors to silence before a single bird on a dead branch. Some people spend their lives proving what they can do. Musashi spent his discovering who he was. That, perhaps, is the greatest art of all.